Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Monday, 3rd of July, 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the Isle of Man, a background to the news and sport and business and Sea Watch and travel updates and the newsmakers in person. This evening, no public viewing planned for the new boat, how Rob Callister MHK will vote on assisted dying. Airport parking is now red and green. Football teams are going for gold at the Island Games, and there's an open-air public cannabis meeting at 6 o'clock tonight in Castletown Square.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
But first of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Faster Mai, Siobhan Fletcher.
Faster Mai. Members of the public are unlikely to be able to go on board the Isle of Man's new vessel Manxman ahead of her going to service. The steam packet has confirmed there are no plans for an open day after the idea was floated on social media by people keen to see the inside of the new ship. The Communications and Utilities Regulatory Authority has upheld a complaint about Manx Radio, determining that the radio station has breached its regulatory obligations. It follows a complaint that a statement broadcast on the Mannin line on the 29th of June last year was factually incorrect, and a correction and/or apology was not issued. And Mark Cavendish narrowly missed out on an unprecedented 35th Tour de France stage win as he finished 6th on today's third stage. The Manx missile was in contention throughout the day, but was pipped out front with Jasper Philipson taking the win. Further afield, the Met Office says the last month was the warmest June on record in the UK, and climate change is making high temperatures increasingly likely. The country also had only 2/3 of the normal amount of rainfall. An alleged victim in Kevin Spacey's sex assault trial has described the actor as a slippery, snaky, difficult person. The man described driving the actor to a party and having to pull over because he'd been grabbed so aggressively. Mr. Spacey denies the claims. And hundreds of people have marched in a Parisian suburb this afternoon in support of the local mayor, whose house was attacked on Saturday. They're your headlines. News at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Goramaya, thank you. Siobhan from the Ronalds Way Met Office. There's a local strong wind warning in operation which should dissipate as the night goes on. State of sea is moderate, becoming slight and dry this evening on the Isle of Man with clear spells. A moderate to fresh wind coming in from the west or southwest. Overnight minimum 10 degrees Celsius. For Jamert, dry with sunny spells and a possible band of showers late afternoon on a moderate southwesterly. Daylight maximum 17 tomorrow and down through the night. A dry night Tuesday into Wednesday, 11 Celsius. And for the big day on Wednesday, Tynwald Day, sunshine, isolated showers on a light to moderate southwest wind. Top temperature 17 degrees. Tides on the way out, low waters 29 minutes past 6, sunset 7 minutes to 10 tonight, high water 18 minutes after midnight, sunrise tomorrow morning 8 minutes before 5, the morning low water 16 minutes before 7 and the lunchtime high tide at 9 minutes to 1.
Manx Glass and Glazing can produce bespoke splashbacks for your kitchen in any colours. Speak to the team on 674 573.
It's unlikely you'll be able to go on board the Isle of Man's new vessel Manxman ahead of her going into service. The steam packets told Manx Radio there are no plans to offer an open day after the idea was floated on social media by people keen to see the inside of the new boat. John Moss was in Douglas to watch her come home yesterday.
The long trip from the shipyard in South Korea ended with water cannons and hooters and a big crowd to see her berth for the first time. The Manxman arrived off the island at 8 and after the Ben McCree had crossed beside her, she made her way into her new home. A crowd matching that which watches the Red Arrows were waiting on Douglas Head for her arrival.
It'll be nice to see her and see the fanfare coming in.
I'm totally amped. It's going to be absolutely amazing.
I used to have a boat myself, and so I get the nautical side of things and the excitement, especially about the engineering side of it as well. It's just magnificent that we're actually getting a new vessel that can rely on.
the men sliding out. She's known this journey very well indeed, of course, because she's been in and out in all sorts of conditions. Now she's going out of the harbour to hand over the responsibilities of flagship to the Manxman, which is in the bay out there. And she's quite a chunky, if I can put it, probably that's the best way to describe her, as a chunky vessel, big, 133 metres long, the biggest in the steam packet fleet in their history. Now I would imagine the steam whistle will go off. There she is. That's her whistle, that's her hooter in its full splendour as she enters into Douglas Harbour. Her first scheduled passenger crossing is expected later this month.
And Oncan MHK believes assisted dying is one of the most divisive topics there currently is. Rob Callister MHK revealed his intention to vote on the proposed legislation based solely on the majority of his constituents' feedback and without personal feelings. He thinks other political members should consider similar.
Given everything that the island's gone through in the first 2 years of this administration, cost of living crisis, Brexit, COVID still there, I think it's absolutely right that we engage with our constituents and we listen to them, especially as we go through all of these difficulties. More importantly, when we come to fresh, new legislation. And this particular bill is only 14 clauses, which I have to admit, I was quite surprised by that. I was expecting quite a weighty piece of legislation. So it's what goes behind this legislation that I'm more concerned about. You know, when you look at the consultation, it was very different this time. There was 3,326 submissions made, and when you look at question 8, in principle, do you agree or disagree that assisted dying should be permitted for terminally ill adults on the Isle of Man? It was quite surprisingly, we had 49.01% agreeing, but we had 49.61% disagreeing. Now that is completely different to the 64% that agreed that we should have some legislation introduced at the last consultation. So has public opinion changed? That's why it is so important that we as a publicly elected members go out to our constituents to ask them if their opinions changed, listen to that if that's the case. If not, then make sure we are listening to those who haven't had an opportunity to submit their views in order to listening to that particular view and then acting upon it.
This is the most listened to Isle of Man news source, and Manx Radio's Update is the Isle of Man's most downloaded news podcast.
Less than a week to go till the 2023 Island Games in Guernsey get underway, and the Isle of Man's football teams have vowed to go for gold at this year's event. Men's team manager Blaine Slattery and the women's team boss Wayne Lissy are both confident in their squad's abilities to challenge for the top prize.
I'm really happy with the mix and the depth of squad we've got. I think we've got really good experience, and I think we've got some really good, exciting youth players in there as well. Got to go into it with an open mind, and I don't think there's any point in going to a tournament like this if the plan isn't to win it, and that is the plan. But you've got to take it obviously one game at a time. It's really tough, 3 games in 3 days, and then a rest, and then if you get any further, more games. So it's not really something you can't really replicate that in training, or the lads have very little experience of situations like that. So it is hard, but like I said, I'm really happy with the mix of the squad at the moment.
The squad that we have are very technically good players, so we like to play possession football. We've been working on that in training for the last 6 months. The point is always the same, to keep the ball, control the games as much as we can. I'm going in with just an open mind. That is one of the most difficult things about this tournament. Obviously, it's not anyone you've ever played before, and a lot of these teams haven't played due to not being in Island Games in a good couple of years in a while in a competitive fixture, so it is really hard. I've obviously got some experience of some of the players in the squad who've been to previous Island Games before, but they'll only know so much. Like I say, there hasn't been competitive Island Games for a couple of years now, so yeah, you've just got to go into it with an open mind and just do your job well, and hopefully your own tactics will get you through the game. Very similar answer to Blaine, to be honest, because there hasn't been an Island Games for 4 years. You can't really look back over, you can't look on YouTube or anything like that to find out the standards, so it's a blank sheet. It's a start again, and like you said, it's quite refreshing. My ambition has always been, if you're going to go and you're going to play in something, it has to be win at all costs, to go for it. With the talent in the squad, that's the only thing we're going for.
New changes to parking rules at Ronaldsway Airport come into force tomorrow, introducing new parking zones, green and red zones, which indicate standard and premium tariff bays. The Infrastructure Minister Chris Thomas MHK insists the changes are needed to help finance improvements at the airport.
For the last week or so, people will have seen green lines and red lines being put out in the car park. The white lines were already there, pretty much worn away underway already. We've got some very clear signs which refer to the actual regulations, and from tomorrow the parking will be at a higher rate, and there'll be this possibility for premium rates. Some things that people should hear from us if they haven't already seen it on the notices. The first one is this: if you've already paid, your previous rate applies until it expires. Second point is we've got special arrangements for disabled people, so they have an hour's free, whereas it's 30 minutes in the standard charge and 15 minutes in the premium for free. So I hope it works for people. Payment methods are the same as they have as they have been for some time. We are looking to widen possibilities, but at this stage we've put up the prices basically by the 10% in line with other charges across government. It's only by getting income into the airport that we're going to be able to meet our challenges, and we decided that along with things like encouraging new occupants of hangars, focusing on the buildings inside the terminal, trying to work with the private providers there to get them to make their own investment. It's only by doing all those things that we're actually going to make the books come closer to balancing at the airport, because, to be frank, the government's financial situation is fragile at the moment in that sense, and it's not as if we're going to have a huge injection of public funds. We've got to make sure that the travelling public gets the best possible airport, and we work out a way of financing that, because we've got tens of millions of investment that's needed at the airport still.
Sea-Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
The motor ship Ben McCree departed Heysham at 27 minutes to 3. She'll be into Douglas, over which there's a fine rainbow at the moment, I have to say. She'll be in the next 20 minutes or so onto the link span, just gone 6 o'clock, departing this evening at 7:45, arriving in Heysham at 11:30, overnight departure 2:15, back to Douglas at 6 tomorrow morning. The high-speed craft Manannan departed Douglas at 24 minutes past 3. She'll be in Liverpool in the next 20 minutes or so, currently chugging along the River Mersey. Departing this evening at 7:15 from Liverpool, back to Douglas at 10. Tomorrow morning's departures, 7 a.m. Manannan heads to Belfast, 8:45 Ben McCree to Heysham.
Follow the Steam Packet on Twitter for the latest sailing information.
A woman who escaped the Summerland fire with life-changing burns but lost her mother and best friend in the blaze has broken her silence of 50 years. Jackie Hallam is now 63. She's from Huddersfield in West Yorkshire. She was 13 at the time, and she's given a harrowing account of the blaze to the Daily Mail and has launched a campaign demanding an apology from the Isle of Man government over failings that led to the tragedy. The story from Simon Richardson.
Jackie Norton, as she was then, went to the Giant Entertainment Complex with her mum Lorna and best friend Jane Talon, also 13. In the horror that followed, she sustained terrible burns that have required years of operations and treatment in hospital. Her mum and friend Jane perished in the fire that claimed 50 victims. In the newspaper article, Jackie says she was so deeply affected she's never spoken about what happened, not even to her 4 children. She says her Apologise for Summerland campaign is about closure. The campaigners also want a public admission that the death by misadventure verdict was inappropriate, which she claims deflects the blame onto the victims. A national service of remembrance for the victims will take place at St George's Church in Douglas at 4 o'clock on Sunday, the 30th of July.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 16 minutes before 6, AstraZeneca, the British-Swedish multinational pharmaceutical and biotech company, slumped as it announced the results of a high-level study into a new lung cancer drug. CMC Markets, the analyst, said the outcome of the trial was a positive one, but analysts have suggested a lack of clarity over survival improvement rates is behind today's share price weakness. This comes across as a bit of an overreaction given that the data is still being analysed and it's one drug of many. Nonetheless, today's weakness is acting as a more than 50-point drag on the index. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookhall.com. All-inclusive package holidays have jumped in price for Mediterranean hotspots, including Mallorca and Crete. The average price of a week with everything included in Mallorca is up 21%. Prices for Tenerife have risen more than 22%. Crete's up 25%. Overall, the most popular destinations, Spain, Turkey, Greece, Portugal and Cyprus, are up on an average of 12%. Prices beyond the Med have also risen, according to figures compiled by the price comparison website Travel Supermarket for the BBC.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European stock markets are choppy on the first trading day of the quarter. The euro weakened after a slowdown in factory activity in China. Oil rose after top exporters Saudi Arabia and Russia announced supply cuts for August, and oil advanced as the dollar and yields retreated. The numbers from Ramsey Crookall at the close in London. FTSE 100 down 0.06% at 7,527. The DAX in Frankfurt down 0.5% at 16,072. A short time ago in New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial up 0.04% at 34,420. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index is down 0.02% at 13,784, and the S&P 500 in the Midwest up 0.02% at 4,451. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling is trading at $1 26.9 cents, €1 16.2 cents, and 23 South African rand 79.5 cents. And finally, in commodities, gold up almost 0.5% at $1,927 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up just over 1.1% at $75.93.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future. For a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
The company behind plans for a high-tech cannabis farm in the south of the Isle of Man is holding a public meeting in the open air. Grow Labs Organics is the first cannabis business to be approved by government for the cultivation, processing and manufacture of finished cannabis products. The meeting is tonight, 6 o'clock in Castle Town Square. If it's raining, it'll be in the Town Hall. From GLO, here's Alex Frey.
We are a British cannabis company. We're based in the Isle of Man, and we have been approved by the regulator for cultivation, processing, manufacturing finished products, import, export, and R&D with legal cannabis products. And we have a planning application in to build a total footprint of about 13,000 square metres in the Airport Technology Gateway down near the airport. And it's really important to us that we engage with the local community to take on board feedback, get their views, let people know what we're doing, because I think because this is the first one on the island, and there's very, very few facilities like this in the British Isles, and therefore I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding about what it actually looks like, what happens inside, and all that sort of thing. So we thought public consultation, to do it live, is a really good way to try and address some of that, and we're going a step further than perhaps this type of thing normally does by really opening up what goes on inside. There'll be an interactive demo which shows what the process flows are through the different rooms in the facility, and then we've actually got some virtual reality headsets as well, so people can put them on and then walk into the facility and see what it looks like inside a grow room and things like that.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio Sport.
Faster my Rob Pritchard.
Faster my, good evening. Mark Cavendish narrowly missed out on an unprecedented 35th Tour de France stage win as he finished 6th on today's third stage. The Manx missile was in contention throughout the day on the largely flat route from Amorebieta to Bayonne and was in the mix into the final sprint on the final kilometre. However, he was pipped out front with Alpecin-Deceuninck's Jasper Philipsen taking the win, with Bahrain Victorious' Phil Bauhaus taking second. Rounding out the podium spots was Lotto Destiny's Caleb Ewan, who took third. Tomorrow may also hold hold promise for Cavendish to make history, with Stage 4 on Tuesday on a largely flat 182km route from Dax to Nogaro. In football, FC Isle of Man have found out their first 8 games for their upcoming new season in the NWCFL Premier Division. The Ravens will begin their campaign at the Bowl on Saturday, the 29th of July, against Wythenshawe Town at 6:30pm. FC Isle of Man's first away game comes 3 days after their opener and will see them face Ramsbottom United on Tuesday the 1st of August, before the Island squad are back at home at the weekend on Saturday the 5th of August against Litherland Remica. There are 7 games in total in August for FC Isle of Man, with the other 5 involving a home tie against Panaham, followed by 4 consecutive away ties at Glossop North End, Litherland Remica, AFC Liverpool and Skelmersdale United. The rest of this season's NWCFL fixtures will be released in due course. Elsewhere, Manx equestrian competitor Yasmin Ingham has taken victory during her latest event out in Germany. Representing Great Britain, the Grieber rider and her horse, Banzai de Loire, topped the standings in the SAP Cup combined eventing competition in Aachen. Ingham is the first British rider to win at the event. And in darts, the Isle of Man has announced its teams to compete at this year's WDF World Cup. 10 players will head to the event in Denmark from the 26th to the 30th of September. There will be 5 competitors in both the men's and women's teams, led by team managers John Halsall and Rachel Robertson. You can see the full squad at manxradio.com.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Inbound at Ronaldsway and outbound, everything's on time at the moment. The 5:45 inbound Loganair from Manchester is showing on time. Next inbound, the 8 Loganair from London City, the 8 Loganair from Liverpool, returning patient transfer plane, and the 8:35 EasyJet from London Gatwick. Outbound, it's the 6:15 Loganair to Liverpool, showing on time. Then the 9:05 EasyJet back to London Gatwick. Temporary lights on Estelle Road, Onchan, for work on the pavements, and Groudle Road, Onchan's closed between Harbour Road and Fairway, closed for gas work. Loudest Road, Andrus, closed for resurfacing between the main road through the village and Larravane Meadow. The Starvey Road's closed for Manx Utilities workforce. Temporary lights on the A1 at Glenvine, Ballygarry traffic lights. They're doing some gas main work there. In Foxdale, the Garth Road's closed between Tossaby Road and the Foxdale Road for bridge replacement. East Quay Peel closed between the House of Manannan and the road bridge, and also Peel to Kirkmichael Coast Road has got phased closures. Temporary lights in Glen Helen on the TT course. They're still cutting down trees, and a lot of them. Temporary lights on the Cumberland Road in Ramsey for resurfacing. Callister Road's closed between Crotty Quill Road and Rensall Hill in Laxey for resurfacing. Ballymenook Road in Jerby's phased closures for water main work. Temporary lights on the Howe Road in Port St Mary for substation work. Temporary lights on Ballacomine Road, Douglas, for resurfacing. And Packhorse Lane, Boldrine is closed for resurfacing.
H&HMotorcycles.im for all your motorcycle requirements. Southgate Industrial Estate, opposite Quayside Tyres. Call 665646.
A public consultation into the Isle of Man's heritage railways has been launched today. The story from Lewis Foster.
Government says the exercise aims to gather views from the public, and contributions will help inform the ongoing independent review and economic impact assessment being carried out by Sistra. Understanding who uses the Heritage Rail network and why, it says, will support the review and final report, which Sistra will present by the end of September. Infrastructure Minister Chris Thomas said the Heritage Rail network holds significant historical and cultural value to the Isle of Man, and we're committed to ensuring its continued relevance and success. It's important for the consultants to have information from the public on how often they use the heritage railways where they visit, and also why they feel it's important to them. We encourage all individuals and organisations to participate in the consultation, he says, as it will play a crucial role in shaping the future of the Heritage Rail network. Well, at the unveiling of a plaque honouring the 150th anniversary of the steam railway this weekend, Mr Thomas was asked what his message to Manx people would be regarding this report and why they should fill out the consultation.
It's part of the heritage, it's part of the culture, it's part of the future.
The public consultation will run for 6 weeks and conclude on the 13th of August. The department says it anticipates receiving diverse perspectives and valuable feedback during this period. You can find the consultation document on the government website, and it can also be downloaded from consult.gov.im. Alternatively, you can submit written comments to the DOI at the CETM.
Update Brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
Fast am I. Good evening. It's 6 minutes before 6. Remember, every weekday evening between 5:30 and 6, it's Update on Manx Radio. 30 minutes of nothing but news from the Isle of Man. The new Isle of Man herring quota that follows 2 years of consultative post-Brexit discussions is set to provide a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the Manx fishing industry. That story from Manx Radio's Siobhan Fletcher.
The deal, which was first reported in the Telegraph newspaper over the weekend, is said to have followed lengthy and productive talks between the Isle of Man and UK governments. Before the EU Common Fisheries Policy introduced quotas in the 1980s, fishermen had been free to catch the fish in Manx waters, and at its peak, the Manx herring industry was estimated to directly employ around 3,500 people, with a thriving kipper industry in full swing. However, falling stocks meant Manx fishermen's focus turned to scallops and queenies, and the quota allocated by the UK fell so far that the fishery was not commercially viable. By the time the herring numbers recovered to today's sustainable levels, quotas had become consolidated outside the Isle of Man under UK quota allocation rules. However, since Brexit, the UK has gained a greater share of Irish Sea herring quotas, and the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs recently determined how this should be shared amongst British vessels. It means Manx fishermen can once again diversify, signalling the end of their reliance on shellfish. The Manx herring season will run from July to the end of the year. DEFRA has made an additional £150,000 available to fishing businesses wishing to diversify, and full details for those interested can be found at manxradio.com.
That's it for Update tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Siobhan Fletcher and to producer Rhiann Evans. After the news at 6 o'clock, Phil Gorn and guests talking about a sister dying. I'm Andy Wint, back with another update tomorrow at 5:30.
WINT